Mocked by the galaxy, Captain Elena Vasquez pressed her palm against the cold metal wall of her ship's bridge and felt the familiar vibration that meant the Rust Runner was barely holding together. The salvage vessel had been her home for 8 years now, ever since she left the Human Defense Corps after the Treaty of Kepler Prime. The treaty that had made humanity the galaxy's newest junior members, barely tolerated by the established powers. Through the cracked viewport, Nexus Prime Station grew larger as they approached. The massive structure gleamed like a jewel against the star field, its crystalline towers and flowing organic curves representing the pinnacle of Valkyrie architecture. Around it, sleek alien vessels moved in perfect formation, their hulls polished to mirror brightness. Next to them, the Rust Runner looked like exactly what she was, a battered human freighter held together by spare parts and stubborn pride. Marcus Thompson, her chief engineer and oldest friend, looked up from a console that sparked whenever he touched the wrong button. Everyone called him Wrench, and he wore the nickname with pride. His weathered hands had kept more dying ships breathing than anyone else in human space. "Docking control is giving us the runaround," he said, his voice carrying the slight accent of the Mars colonies. "They want to put us in the salvage berths with the other scrap." Elena smiled grimly. The salvage berths were where broken ships went to die, stripped for parts by automated systems. It was also where the galaxy's major powers liked to remind humans of their place. "Tell them we're carrying archaeological specimens for Dr. Chen. Official research business." Dr. Aria Chen looked up from her workstation, where holographic displays showed star charts and ancient alien writing. She was young for a xenorchaeologist, barely 30, but she had a gift for understanding how extinct civilizations thought. "The Trilaxians granted us full research credentials," she said. "Even the Valkyrie have to respect that." The communication system crackled to life, and an alien voice spoke in perfectly pronounced human English. The translator implants made all alien speech sound cold and mechanical, but Elena could hear the disdain anyway. "Human vessel Rust Runner, you are cleared for berth 97 in Section C. Maintain minimum velocity, and do not approach any military vessels." "Copy that, Control," Elena replied. She did not mention that Section C was the furthest possible point from the station's diplomatic and commercial centers. They were being put where important people would not have to look at them. As they docked, Elena could see alien crew members pointing at their ship through viewing ports. A group of tall, pale Trilaxians gestured at the Rust Runner's patched hull and laughed, the sound carrying through the station's atmosphere. Nearby, a squad of Valkyrie warriors in their ceremonial armor watched with expressions that Elena had learned to recognize as contempt. The Valkyrie believed strength was everything, and humans looked very weak to them. Elena, Wrench, and Dr. Chen made their way through the station's gleaming corridors toward the salvage master's office. Other species moved past them with barely concealed disgust. A Zephyrian trader actually stepped aside, as if humanity might be contagious. The message was clear. Humans were tolerated, not respected. The salvage master was a heavy-set Trilaxian named Kexrel, who had been trading in ancient artifacts for over 2 centuries. His 3 eyes studied their credentials with obvious skepticism. "Another human expedition looking for ancient weapons," he said, his translator giving his words a sneer. "You people watch too many adventure films." "We're looking for archaeological sites," Dr. Chen replied calmly. "Specifically, traces of the architect civilization." The architects were a mystery that fascinated xenorchaeologists throughout the galaxy. They had built massive structures throughout known space over 1 million years ago, then vanished without explanation. Their technology was so advanced that most of their artifacts were still beyond current understanding. Kexrol's laugh was like grinding metal. "The architects built nothing in this sector. Everyone knows that. But if you want to waste your credits on salvage rights to dead systems, that is your choice." He transferred a data packet to Dr. Chen's tablet. "Sector 47B has 17 dead systems, Most have been picked clean by real salvage operations, but perhaps you will find something worth your time. They returned to their ship to find a crowd of alien spectators gathered around the Rust Runner. A group of young Valkyrie officers were pointing at the ship's weapon mounts and making jokes in their own language. Elena did not need translation to understand they were mocking her ship's ancient projectile weapons. One of the Valkyrie, wearing the golden trim of a fleet commander, approached them as they walked up the boarding ramp. He was tall even for his species, with the characteristic pale blue skin and silver hair that marked him as military nobility. His armor was polished to perfection, and energy weapons hung from his belt like jewelry. "You are the human captain," he said without introduction. His name, according to Elena's cultural files, would be something like Zixtal or Nexmore, but she had learned that using Valkyrie names incorrectly was considered an insult. "I am fleet commander of the 3rd Battle Group. I have heard much about human ingenuity." The way he said ingenuity made it sound like a disease. Elena kept her expression neutral. "Something I can help you with, Commander." "I wish to see for myself the vessels that won the Battle of Kepler Prime," he continued. "The report said humans fought with primitive projectile weapons against energy shields. Very creative." Elena remembered Kepler Prime, the battle that had ended the human-Valkyrie war and secured humanity's place in galactic civilization. The human fleet had been outnumbered 3-1, using ships that were generations behind Valkyrie technology. They had won through tactics the Valkyrie considered dishonorable. Hit and run attacks, using asteroids for cover, targeting supply lines instead of engaging in honorable ship-to-ship combat. "We used what worked," Elena said simply. The Valkyrie commander smiled, showing teeth that had been filed to points as a mark of rank. "Indeed. And now you search for ancient artifacts to make your ships less primitive. How very human." He gestured at the Rust Runner with obvious contempt. "Perhaps you will find something that can make this vessel worthy of the name Warship." He walked away with his entourage, their laughter echoing through the docking bay. Elena felt wrenched tense beside her, but she put a hand on his arm. Starting a fight on Nexus Prime would only prove what the galaxy already thought about humans. 3 days later, they were deep in Sector 47B, investigating their 5th dead system. The first 4 had been exactly what Kexrol promised, empty space where planets had once orbited, picked clean by decades of salvage operations. Dr. Chen remained optimistic, but Elena was starting to worry about their fuel reserves. "Got something on long-range sensors," Wrench called from his station. "Looks like a derelict station, maybe pre-war Trilaxian design." Elena studied the scanner display. The object was huge, easily the size of a small moon, but it was not showing up on most of their sensors. Only the deep space gravitational detectors were picking it up. "That's strange. Why can't we see it on optical?" Dr. Chen was already running analysis programs on her workstation. "The hull material is absorbing electromagnetic radiation across most of the spectrum. This is not Trilaxian technology. The construction patterns are all wrong." Her voice grew excited. "Elena, I think we found an architect's site." The station was a massive sphere covered in geometric patterns that hurt to look at directly. The material was some kind of black metal that seemed to bend light around itself. Docking ports were scattered across its surface, but they were clearly designed for ships much larger than the Rust Runner. "I'm reading massive power signatures from the core," Wrench reported. "This thing is still active after 1,000,000 years. The architects really knew how to build." They docked at one of the smaller ports and made their way inside. The station's interior was a maze of corridors and chambers that defied human understanding of architecture. Rooms existed at impossible angles, and gravity seemed to work differently in different areas. Dr. Chen was in heaven, taking recordings of everything and muttering about revolutionary discoveries. In the station's central core, they found it. The chamber was spherical, maybe 100 meters in diameter, and filled with floating geometric shapes that pulsed with internal light. At the center was something that Elena's brain refused to process properly. It looked like a crystal and a machine and a living thing all at once, constantly shifting between forms. Dr. Chen approached it with the reverence of someone touching the face of God. "It's beautiful," she whispered. "Elena, this is an architect control matrix. Do you understand what this means? This could be the key to understanding their entire civilization." Elena was more interested in the readings Wrench was getting from his scanners. "Area, what does this thing actually do?" Dr. Chen ran her hands over surfaces that seemed solid one moment and gaseous the next. Her instruments were recording energy patterns unlike anything in the Galactic database. I think it's a fabrication system, but not for building ships or stations. This thing builds reality itself. Matter, energy, space-time. It's all just raw material to the architects." They spent hours studying the artifact, taking readings and recordings. Dr. Chen managed to interface her computer with some of the peripheral systems, downloading terabytes of data that would take years to analyze. But it was Wrench who made the discovery that would change everything. "Elena, you need to see this," he called from a side chamber. He had found what looked like a maintenance manual, written in symbols that shifted and changed but somehow remained comprehensible. "I think I know how to make this thing work with our ship." Elena stared at the manual, feeling a chill run down her spine. The diagrams showed how the architect technology could be integrated with existing systems, how it could transform any vessel into something far beyond current understanding. "Wrench, we can't just bolt alien doomsday weapons to our ship." "Why not?" Dr. Chen asked, and Elena was surprised by the intensity in her voice. "Elena, do you know what we could accomplish with this? Humanity could leapfrog ahead of every other species in the galaxy. We would never have to be the junior partners again." Elena thought about the Valkyrie commander and his filed teeth, about the way other species looked at humans like they were barely worth noticing. She thought about the salvage berths and the mocking laughter and the constant reminders that humanity was new and weak and unimportant. "How long would it take?" she asked. Wrench grinned, the expression transforming his weathered face. "Give me 3 days and whatever spare parts we can find on this station. I'll show the galaxy what human engineering can really do." They worked around the clock, cutting into the station's hull to extract components and jury-rigging connections between architect technology and human systems. Dr. Chen translated the technical manuals while Wrench performed surgical modifications to their ship's power core and weapons systems. Elena coordinated their efforts and tried not to think about what they were unleashing. On the 3rd day, as they prepared to leave the architect station, Elena received a priority message from Nexus Prime. It was from the Valkyrie fleet commander, and his hologram showed the same contemptuous smile as before. "Human captain," he said, "I trust your scavenging expedition was profitable. When you return to Nexus Prime, I would like to discuss your ship's capabilities. My superiors are curious about human engineering projects." Elena looked at her transformed ship. The Rust Runner still looked like a battered freighter on the outside, but hidden within her hull were systems that could reshape reality itself. The galaxy was about to learn that appearances could be very deceiving. "Tell the fleet commander we'll be happy to demonstrate our capabilities," she replied. He might find them educational. From Rust to Reckoning. The journey back to Nexus Prime took 4 days, and Elena spent every hour of it wondering if they had made a terrible mistake. The architect technology had integrated with their ship's systems in ways that defied human understanding. Wrench assured her that the modifications were stable, but stability was relative when dealing with million-year-old alien artifacts. Dr. Chen had barely slept since they left the derelict station. She sat at her workstation surrounded by holographic displays showing energy patterns and quantum equations that made Elena's head hurt. "The implications are staggering," she kept saying. "This technology doesn't just manipulate matter and energy. It manipulates the fundamental forces that hold reality together." "In terms that won't give me nightmares," Elena said, "what exactly can our ship do now?" Wrench looked up from a maintenance panel where new conduits glowed with otherworldly light. "Best I can figure, The Architect system uses our ship's existing components as templates. It takes whatever we have and makes it more. Better shields, stronger weapons, faster engines. But it also adds capabilities that human technology never had. Like what? Dr. Chen pulled up a holographic display showing the ship's new specifications. Localized gravity manipulation, temporal distortion fields, matter conversion on a molecular level. Alina, we're no longer flying a salvage ship. We're flying a weapon that could reshape solar systems. The magnitude of what they had done was starting to sink in. Alina had wanted to prove that humans deserved respect, but they might have just made themselves the most dangerous species in the galaxy. Every military power would want this technology, and they would do anything to get it. When Nexus Prime appeared on their sensors, Alina was surprised to see how many ships were waiting for them. The station's usual traffic had been joined by military vessels from every major species. Valkyrie battle cruisers hung in space like silver daggers, their weapons trained on the approach vectors. Trilaxian warforms looked like living coral reefs bristling with energy cannons. Even the normally peaceful Zephyrians had sent their defensive fleet. They know, Wrench said quietly. Somehow, they know what we found. Alina suspected Ambassador Keth Moore, the Trilaxian diplomat who had been asking questions about their expedition. The Trilaxians had an intelligence network that spanned the galaxy, and they were very good at putting together incomplete information. Doesn't matter how they know. What matters is what we do about it. The communication system activated, and multiple voices spoke at once as different fleets demanded their attention. Alina switched to the general emergency frequency. This is Captain Vasquez of the Rust Runner. We're returning from a scheduled archaeological expedition. Request normal docking clearance. The response came from the Valkyrie fleet commander himself. His hologram appeared on their main screen, and Alina could see the bridge of his flagship behind him. It was all polished metal and perfect symmetry, designed to intimidate anyone who saw it. Captain Vasquez, by order of the Galactic Defense Council, you will submit to immediate inspection and surrender any artifacts recovered during your expedition. Alina smiled grimly. The Galactic Defense Council was dominated by the Valkyrie and their allies. They had never shown any interest in human archaeological work before. I'm afraid I don't recognize the Council's authority over human expeditions in unclaimed space. We'll dock at Nexus Prime as planned. More voices joined the communication, creating a cacophony of demands and threats. The Trilaxians wanted the technology studied by their scientists. The Zephyrians demanded it be locked away for the safety of all species. The Valkyrie simply demanded surrender. Through it all, Alina guided the Rust Runner toward the station. The alien fleets moved to intercept them, but they maintained careful distances. Nobody wanted to fire the first shot and start a galactic war, but Alina could feel the tension building like pressure in a sealed container. That was when Fleet Commander Zixtal made his decision. Alina saw the energy build up on the scanners just seconds before the first shot was fired. A concentrated plasma beam lanced out from the Valkyrie flagship, intended to disable the Rust Runner's engines and force them to surrender. The beam struck their rear shields and simply stopped. The Architect technology absorbed the energy and converted it into something else, something that made the space around their ship shimmer like heat waves. Alina felt a strange tingling sensation, as if the air itself was becoming charged with potential. Warning shot, Alina announced over the general frequency. Next one won't be. Zixtal's response was to order his entire battle group to open fire. 20 Valkyrie warships unleashed their weapons simultaneously, creating a wall of destructive energy that should have vaporized the human ship instantly. Instead, the Rust Runner absorbed every shot and kept flying toward the station. Alina looked at Wrench, who was monitoring their new systems with wide eyes. What just happened to all that energy? The Architect system is storing it, he replied, his voice filled with wonder. Every shot they fire is making us stronger. Dr. Chen was watching her instruments with the fascination of a scientist observing a miracle. The technology is converting their weapons fire into raw potential energy. We're not just defending against their attacks. We're feeding on them. The alien fleets seemed to realize this at the same time. The weapons fire stopped, but Alina could see them repositioning for ramming attacks. The Valkyrie believed that if energy weapons wouldn't work, overwhelming physical force would. That was when Alina decided to show them what the Rust Runner could really do. She activated the Architect weapon systems for the first time, and reality bent around her ship. The Rust Runner suddenly existed in multiple positions simultaneously, creating dozens of ghost images that confused enemy targeting systems. Each image was real and unreal at the same time, a possibility given form by technology that treated the laws of physics as suggestions. The Valkyrie flagship tried to ram one of the images and passed through empty space, its momentum carrying it into a collision course with a Trilaxian cruiser. Both ships barely managed to avoid disaster, their perfect formations dissolving into chaos as they tried to track a target that existed everywhere and nowhere. Alina selected a small asteroid near the edge of the system and focused the ship's new capabilities on it. The asteroid simply ceased to exist, not destroyed but uncreated, as if it had never been there at all. In its place was a sphere of pure energy that pulsed with the same light as the Architect systems. The effect on the alien fleets was immediate. Ships that had been closing for attack suddenly reversed course, their crews no doubt reporting impossible sensor readings to their commanders. Alina could imagine the panic on those bridges as weapons officers tried to understand what they were facing. "Attention all vessels," Alina broadcast on every frequency. "This is Captain Vasquez of the Rust Runner. We are carrying archaeological specimens under Trilaxian research protocols. Any interference with our mission will be considered an act of piracy." Ambassador Kethmore's voice cut through the chaos, speaking with the authority of someone who had survived 3 centuries of galactic politics. "Captain Vasquez, perhaps we should discuss this situation before it escalates further. I suggest a meeting on Nexus Prime." Alina looked at her crew. Wrench was grinning like a child with a new toy, clearly eager to see what other capabilities their ship might have. Dr. Chen was already making plans for the research papers she would write about this day. Both of them looked to her for the decision that would determine humanity's future in the galaxy. "We'll dock at Nexus Prime," Alina replied. "But we'll keep our archaeological specimens. Thank you very much." The alien fleets parted before them like a curtain, creating a clear path to the station. Alina could see alien crew members pressed against viewing ports, watching the impossible human ship that had just redefined what was possible. The mockery was gone from their faces, replaced by something Alina had never seen before when aliens looked at humans, respect mixed with fear. As they docked, Alina noticed they had been assigned to Berth 1, reserved for the most important diplomatic vessels. No one was laughing at the Rust Runner anymore. The battered freighter that had been mocked as scrap had become the most feared ship in known space. Ambassador Kethmore was waiting for them at the airlock, flanked by representatives from every major species. His expression was carefully neutral, but Alina could see the calculation in his ancient eyes as he tried to understand what humanity had become. "Captain Vasquez," he said formally, "the Galactic Council would like to discuss your recent discoveries. Perhaps we can reach an understanding that benefits everyone." Alina smiled as she stepped off her ship. For the first time since humanity had joined galactic civilization, she was negotiating from a position of strength. The galaxy had learned that humans might look weak on the surface, but appearances could be very deceiving. "I think that can be arranged, Ambassador," she replied. "But from now on, humanity won't be accepting the junior partnership. We're ready to be full members of this galaxy." Behind her, the Rust Runner hummed with barely contained power, its Architect systems ready to reshape reality itself if necessary. The age of human weakness was over. The age of human strength had begun. The galaxy would never underestimate humanity again.